It's Ariel Posen in the house. Man,
Yo,
I'm super stoked to have you back for a little chat with our guitar friends, man. For those of you who don't know, Ariel is like one of the greatest living slide guitar players around. Incredible player, great singer, great songwriter, great looking. He's got it all, man. He's the whole package. And
I don't know about
so
that.
I'm hoping today he's going to share some stuff primarily about slide guitar. He is great guitar generally, but slide guitar really, I feel like that's the thing that you got that is like super special. So quick hi to the room first of all. Loads of people. We got some from He's in Canada, so we got some Toronto, Sweden, Southeast England, Arizona, Tucson, Arizona, Doncaster, loads everywhere.
Nice.
Yeah, they're coming from all over today, and on Facebook too. It looks like as well. Actually, we seem to be having a broad thing. So
Great. Hello, everybody. Thanks for hanging
yeah.
out.
Um, should we start with real basic slide things? Like, what if somebody's not played? Let's assume somebody's never played slide guitar before and they just want to start having a bit of a dabble. Where should they start? What do they need to do? Obviously, maybe buy one for a start.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, yeah. So, unfortunately, slide, it's not like learning to play a genre or a style. It's like a technique that requires a bit of searching first, like before it has anything to do with actually making music. So, yeah, you said buy a slide, but before you buy a slide, you need to find a slide that truly fits and feels comfortable. So, I prefer a slide that's kind of snug. This is my signature slide, which I've had for 10 years now, I realized. Um, it fits kind of like a glove, like you don't notice the difference between your finger and the slide.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying you need to play this slide. I'm not saying you need to play on your pinky. That's just what's always been comfortable for me. All my favorite players play on the ring. There's a couple that play middle finger. Whatever feels the best for you, that's what you should do. Um, so try a bunch of slides out and see like what feels good. Don't just buy the first one. When I was a kid or like when I first started, I would go to the music store. Give me that slide, sure. This one, it's like a glass slide that's like
Mm-hmm.
your fingers just swimming around in it. And I'm like, well, I really suck at this, I think. But it was like, wait a minute, I don't think this is the right one for me. So it took a long time to find one and realize that, wait a minute, this could be so much easier if I just have one that fits well. So
And
does
do you
that,
think do you think the weight thing is part of the personal preference thing, or is like having a heavier slide better to start off with than like these little? I got one here, like the super thin brass things that don't weigh much, or the glass ones, or whatever. They're quite different weights, I think. Is that? Do you think that's important for a beginner?
I don't think so. Maybe someone else would say
Okay.
something differently. I think what's more important is the feel and the size rather than the weight.
Mm-hmm.
Because whatever the weight is, you're going to get used to it anyways. If it's lighter, you're going to adjust your touch. If it's heavier, you're going to.
Mm-hmm.
So that I wouldn't worry about. It's more so how it fits on your finger and which finger you're picking. So speaking of the weight though, the other really important part, and I just suggest this if you can, not everyone has the luxury of just taking one guitar and devoting it to a more slide friendly setup. But if you can, even if you want to play tens, I'm sure a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people like nines. Tens or 11s are great. We're talking standard tuning, by the way. This
Mm-hmm.
is normal. I would just raise your action a little bit. I don't have measurements for you, but all my guitars, like they're high enough I can play slide, but low enough that I could also. Couldn't tell you what the measurement is. It's just based on feel. Whenever I get it set up, it's like, here you go. How's this?
Mm-hmm.
Higher. You know what I mean? It's kind of one of those things. So you gotta know what you're looking for, and you have to know in your own gut feeling when it feels like
Mm-hmm.
comfortable. And you'll know, like when you have the slide and you're not getting like the ugly noises, which I'm getting because I'm really pressing down with it right now. You'll know. And I promise you, just that alone, we haven't even really gotten into the technique, but right slide, the right finger, and proper string gauge and string height will be will make a huge difference for you before you start worrying about technique and all that jazz.
Did you choose little finger just because it felt right, or because you wanted to play behind the slidey sort of stuff, or was it just a gut reaction, or more calculated?
Well, like I said earlier, all my favorite players play on their ring finger. So naturally, that's what I did. This isn't a ring finger slide. So I naturally did that. I started out with that, and I think I got on just fine, but it never felt right. So it was like very early on decision, which is rare when you're younger, to do something in your own like lane, or do something just based on your own feeling rather than like what you see other people do. I just said, I think it feels more comfortable for me on the pinky. And before getting into behind the slide, I noticed, hey, look, I can still play a lot of chords and whatever. So I was like, I think this works for me. And then later on, I got into like the... Which, whatever. That's just like embellishing what you're already playing with the slide. That was just bonus. You could still do that if you're a ring. Like, you just don't have your ring finger. Obviously, it's a bit of a struggle for me, but it can be done. If you're feeling discouraged, like, I play on my ring finger, you can do it. You can do anything. We're here about telling encouragement. Like, you can literally do anything. I know I'm rambling, but I guess that's why I'm here a bit. So I'm going to stop.
That's the deal. No, you're good. So they've got the right slide. They've dug up their old guitar that they thought they didn't want anymore because they bought a new one, and they've cranked up the action a little bit. Where to now? What's the next? On the technique thing, because obviously you can use slide for lots of different styles or lots of different genres.
Yeah.
What are the first technical steps that you recommend that people get into?
Okay, let's start with your left hand, fret hand, slide hand. There's a lot of things that I see people do incorrectly right out the gate, and it's no one's fault. It's because it's our instinct to do it incorrectly, and it's not quite as natural feeling to do it what I would consider correctly. So that's why I'm here, to show you right out the gate how you can do it in a way that works for you. And there's always wiggle room, like I have my way I like to do stuff. The next person does it a little different, but there's going to be a lot of alignment around everyone you ask. So, okay. So first and foremost, I see a lot of people play slide like this, where their thumb is just sitting like that. First of all, you never play guitar like that, right? I can't even picture playing guitar without my thumb, unless it's like look how weird does that look?
Yeah.
Okay, so the thumb is one of your best friends with playing slide. It's like your ultimate ally, and you have to keep it planted. Like, see how little it's moving? Can you see? That.
I'll disappear.
Trying to do big movements so you can see how little the thumb's moving. So the thumb is your anchor. The thumb is going to give you the most control with the slide and without the slide too. So I just can't stress. Just keep that thumb planted no matter what. With your other fingers, the other common mistake I see is, and I say it's a mistake, but I see a lot of people make it work. So let's say I'm playing on the B string. Let's say I'm playing a major scale with my fingers. Now, when we play it, maybe you can see it better like that. We play with the tip of our finger, right? What I see a lot of people do is play it like this with the slide. Now Now you're probably wondering what's wrong with that. It sounded fine. I'm playing it literally with my knuckle. So it's like I'm going... And like we don't play guitar like that. So try to get it as much on the tip as you can. Does that make sense? You still there, Justin?
It does. No. I just anticipated to give you the whole screen.
Yeah. So that's a really big one. Is I find people struggle with slide and they get turned off by it because they put it on and then they try to treat it like it's some kind of party trick or a novelty, and they feel like they need to really change their playing. But the closer you keep your technique to what you already do and know and use it kind of like you're embellishing your current existing ethos of technique, then it's going to be a lot easier and it's going to make a lot more. It's just going to be more intuitive the way you're gliding around.
That's a really big, that's definitely something I do. Maybe I don't cover like all 6 all the time, but I'm definitely guilty of playing much more than the individual note that I'm playing. And I hadn't really thought of that.
It's a natural instinct. It's totally natural instinct to do that. So it's kind of weird to like, wait a minute, you know?
Yeah.
But if you remember, then you start doing it, then it makes more sense. So that's...
Does the all rounded slide help with that? Is that part of the reason for the rounded end as opposed to just the regular cut off pipe vibe?
Truthfully, I'm never playing with the very tip, like head on.
Yeah.
But I guess what you could make an argument for is when you have like the tip like this. Can you see that? Focus in.
It just wants to, yeah.
Anyways, you get like some of the ugly sounds when it rubs.
Okay.
So it takes that away. You're not getting any of the ugliness. So if you are like playing the A string and it's rubbing against the E, you don't get that like harsh nails on a chalkboard sound.
Yeah. Nice. Okay.
So there's still
that's
some more
a good tip.
Yeah. So some more technique things. A lot of people think there's muting with this hand. And the truth is that there isn't really any muting happening. But if you keep your fingers like just sitting on the strings, there's a dampening that happens. And I'm going to show you the difference. It's very subtle. Check this out. So this is without it. You can hear a lot of like upper harmonics. And then if I dampen it, it's so subtle. Do you hear it?
Yeah, I don't think it's subtle at all. I think it's really very different.
Okay.
Like even in this environment here, like I'm, via the internet, I can hear that the first one has a lot more of these kind of high overtones going on than the second. It's the notes behind the slide, right? That's those extra sounds that we're hearing.
Well, no, we're hearing just the slide, the notes that we're playing with the slide. These are just dampening it from behind. Because if I actually play a note behind the slide, oh, you can't see it. You don't hear any of that. It's just there to like take a little bit of that ringing out and those extra little, I wouldn't call them ugly frequencies because it doesn't sound bad, but it's just a bit more contained. And like as a template, we always want our hands to, we have like our where our hand sits normally. Like it's good to have a template, and just kind of sitting comfortably like that. It's just a good habit to get them to start sitting there.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense. Okay, a couple more things that are important is intonation. A lot of people worry about that with the slide, playing in tune. And the best part about it, like I don't know that we're ever fully in tune. However, if you're going to practice your intonation, it's really good not to do it with your eyes, but to start training yourself to do it with your ears. Because on the guitar, if I'm playing the E on the B string, if I play it anywhere, obviously if I go to the other fret, it sounds the same. Now if I play the same spot, I'll give you a little drone for reference. Now, if I do that with the slide, I'm literally in the middle of the fret. So see where I am? That's actually the most in tune spot, is right on the next fret. So you don't want to just base that off of like every time you're playing, you're going by looking. You eventually just want to play to the out of tuneness and use it to your favor. Perfect example. It was a little flat, but then course corrected. So if I don't look and I just use my ears, I actually play a lot more in tune. I'm gonna miss at first, but my course correction is gonna happen like pretty fast. Like, see, right there. There it is again. So just a good practice to not use the eyes, but to use the ears. You could obviously use apps that play you a tone or have a loop going, and you work on it. It's going to come with time. It's just going to come from experience and playing.
Do you use the open string drone thing? Like when I don't practice a lot of slide guitar, but when I do, I quite often try and I either keep returning to open strings because they're not going to be out of tune, just as part of it, just as a reset. Is that part of it, or you think using it, playing with a backing track or a loop, or what's the?
I mean, you've heard me do it like in that intro. I love like. I personally love drones, and just as a sound, it's beautiful to me. And but it is a good exercise to work it in. If it feels a little advanced out the gate, I would suggest just using a simple tone thing on your computer or whatever, your DAW, or on a loop. One thing at a time. Like, don't make it too hard for yourself when you're already introducing like a new technique. Don't worry about, okay, this is hard enough. Let's work that in too. Within reason, but again, like you guys will know once you start. I feel like in our practice and getting better at things just in life, there's like a light bulb moment where we go like, oh, I think I get it now. Or like, I think I'm like understanding it or feeling it now. And for some, it takes a lot longer. For some, it takes a lot less time. You just can't force it, but just, you'll know when you know. So intonation is really important. And I'd say this is my transition into our right hand, but one thing that makes slide sound great, and the whole point of slide is to sound very legato, which means your notes are all tied together. It's like sounding like a singer, right? If we play without a slide, we're always breaking it up with every pick strike. So if you do that with slide, it sounds good, but it's not the true essence of why we play slide. The essence of it is almost no attacking. And this goes back to like making sure your setup is high enough, because if the string height isn't high enough, this is going to be tough. But the less you attack, like all that kind of stuff, that's all centered around no attacking. One initial attack, and then if you run out of sound, then that's when you hit it again. That's my rule.
Yeah, amazing.
So that's my transition into the right hand. The right hand really, when I play slide, I like to use my fingers more, as you see me doing this kind of technique. I am using my middle finger primarily. Why? Don't know. I've always just done that. Partial reason why is because I can mute. We talked about dampening. Now we're actually talking about muting. So when we're playing, let's say the B string again, I only want... I'll play up here so you can see. I only want you to hear the B string. I don't want you to hear any other string. So if I'm not muting and I'm playing with the pick here, check this out. Do you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
You should be hearing all those other notes that we don't want to be hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So my muting technique, I call it sandwiching. And I call it sandwiching because I'm playing the B string and then I'm holding the G and the E string like a sandwich. And then my thumb is sitting on the rest of the string. So if I'm engaged, you only hear that B string. Or, oops, or the G string, D string, A string, E string. Does that make sense? So it's a technique that you just have to do for a long time to the point where it becomes part of your subconsciousness. You can't think about it. Like for me, I could play and then even without the pick, I do that technique. Sorry, without the slide, I do that technique as well. And just switching between them has just become second nature, kind of.
Do you nearly always play with a pick in your hand? Because you got your pick in your first finger.
Yeah.
So is that nearly always there, or do you often play without a pick in your hand at all?
It's always. I feel more comfortable with it even in my index finger here than without it. I've never really thought about that, but yeah, I definitely feel more.
But when you
natural.
just did it, then you used your first finger to pick the notes. That was interesting.
Exactly. Look at that. Well, that's due to the nature of that finger's holding the pick, right?
Yeah.
So it probably makes more sense. In a way, it's almost like the two
You're using
fingers.
both. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah. Interesting.
Wow. Calling me out on my subconscious technique.
No, it's just interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's really interesting, yeah.
I know Chris Buck does the thing where he plays with pick and fingers. He doesn't do the slide thing as much, I don't think, but he just does it for the different texture. But he holds the pick, hides the pick in the... Yeah, he holds exactly like...
No, he holds it like this, I think.
Is it? I thought he had it in his first finger. Maybe I'm wrong.
If I remember correctly, and Chris, you can correct me if I feel like he holds it like this, which to me is very not natural. Yeah. I see a lot of other people who hold it like this when they play, like a cigarette. And that to me is very unnatural too. This is just the one that works for me. So you got to find the one, and it just takes time. But you, like I said, these things click eventually, and you're like, oh, you will find the one that works as long as you lean to what feels right. Like trust your gut when you're learning techniques and practicing. Generally, if something feels natural, then you should lean into what feels natural. And if it's incorrect, then you can course correct that element, but stay within what feels right, if that makes sense.
I think this muting thing, at least for me, was the biggest mistake that I had when I was trying slide guitar but had no instruction or no idea what was going on. It was just like, why are all of these notes ringing out when I don't want them to? And I was playing it with a pick with no muting at all. And it sounded really horrible. And I just couldn't figure out what was going on for years until I saw someone play slide. And I'm like, they're muting. That's it. That's the, it suddenly was like, why didn't I even think of that to start off with? But
another reason, though, about the muting, it's a lot easier to mute with your fingers. If you're playing finger style. If I'm playing with a pick, I have to basically after every attack go back to muting. So it's not as natural at all.
Are there any proper slide guitar players that play with a pick? I can't think of any. They all seem... I can only recall seeing finger style.
Does Warren Haynes play with a pick?
Haven't seen him, so I wouldn't...
I think Sonny plays maybe hybrid. Does he play with a thumb pick and his finger? I don't know. Most play with their fingers that I've seen.
Most. Let's say, yeah.
It's just,
I think most is a safe bet.
Most is a safe bet. It's also just a nicer sound to my ears to use fingers. As opposed to... Not that it's bad. If you like the sound of pick with slide, That's cool. To my ears, I like it's a bit warmer and not as harsh with the fingers. So
You were talking about that legato sound as being a key characteristic of slide, and I feel like the pick goes against that initial attack of it or whatever, breaks it.
so I agree.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how would do you recommend specific exercises to work on that, or do you think you just play and experiment and that becomes the exercise?
I think a good exercise would be, first of all, you're not going to play a whole lot of, unless you're me, like I do play a lot on lower strings. You can do like all these octavey things, but it's good practice to get it comfortable on every string, even if you're mostly just playing on the top 3 strings. So what I would do is, if you know your basic couple of scales, like major scale, minor scale, and both of the pentatonics, major and minor, just, pick a fret, say the 1st or 2nd, 3rd fret, and play them up. Just try to get it nice and clean with as little attack as possible. Back down. Penta. So you can actually hear my action's a little low on this string, so my sustain, it's causing me to having to attack a couple more, as opposed to doing it on this string. Right? And I would just put a metronome on, or like a nice drum track that feels somewhat inspiring. Like, I'll just show you what I mean. Let's go something way slower. Can you hear that?
Soft,
So
but it's there. There we go.
It's basic, If you want to put that in 8th notes, do whatever you like. But practicing in time kind of forces you. I think you should practice everything in guitar, not slide, anything in time. Music, except when it's free time, is in time. And most of the time it's in time. So I think that it gets you in a good habit just for playing too. Like, a lot of people like to noodle and just free noodle, but there's a lot more intention and meaning in your playing when your playing has pocket and groove and time forced to it. So like, just the metronome or a drum track is really good. So I would just take those scales up and down, focus on your intonation, focus on your attack, focus on your technique, and just try to get a good sound. Maybe record yourself. One thing I didn't talk about, but which is kind of bonus, but is your vibrato. On there's so many different vibratos when we bend. On slide, it's the exact same thing. You just have more to work with. There's the most subtle. It can get pretty unnecessary pretty fast, but think of it like a singer. I do vibrato the way I sing, and I'm not saying like you should base it off me. What I mean is that I'm the type of singer that sings a note straight first, and then the vibrato comes in. So I do that, as opposed to that's just a taste choice. There's no right or wrong there, but it's like when we have licks and we have vocabulary, it's vibrato, like, is slang. There's slang, different ways to say it. Like in conversation, we go, "Hey Justin, haven't seen you in a while. What's up? How's it going? What's happening? What's new? What's shaking?" They all mean the same things, but they sound a little different, and that's good to think of with vibrato and just playing licks and lines in general.
Do you think of vibrato as being above the fundamental, the pitch, or above and below on slide? Because when we're playing without a slide, you can only really add vibrato which is going higher than the fundamental, unless you're using a whammy bar or something. So, but on the slide, you can be reaching either side of the fundamental. Is that ever crossed your mind as to which way you're going or how it works, or you just...
It has. It's always
Okay.
a little behind and the fundamental. as opposed to
Yeah,
that. You
sounds
know what
funny.
I mean? It sounds
Yeah.
funny. So generally, when vibrato happens, like if you have a vibrato pedal or if you sing, your pitch when the vibrato happens, the frequency, the waveform actually typically goes down first, therefore going flat and then back to your
Yeah.
pitch as
Yeah.
opposed to going up.
Uh-huh.
Maybe I'm wrong there, but I've never heard anyone sing like that. Like it's just not natural. Again, it's just weird to even think about, but it is an interesting question.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. Excuse me. Now, I noticed something else just as these are just things I haven't asked you before that I've noticed in today that maybe some other geeks that get, nerds might find interesting. I noticed if you're playing a series of notes without picking, like you've been able to get to playing the major scale and you go do do, if the next note is the one that you're going to pick again, you always give that a little bit more welly into it. Is there a conscious use of sliding into the note? So you go do.
Never thought about it. It's just what I do, I guess.
Okay. No. I kind of feel like it's probably just the natural thing to do that was never thought about, but I'm just kind of, seeing as you're here, I may as well just say like, hey, is that something?
It's probably an instinctual thing knowing that, I have to attack again. So rather than it sounding like a single, I want to give it that slidey sound, which we're trying to do the whole time. So rather than...
Yeah, sounds odd.
I'm really trying to keep the legato slidey sound going. That's interesting. Yeah. That is interesting.
And another if you're descending a scale, there seems to be some notes that you still slide up to. So you'd slide down, but then you'll go up to certain ones. Is that a particular thing? You're sliding up to the major third or minor third, or is it just...
I think it's the same thing we said about pitch. Because you can go down, but just like we were talking about, and I think it's just a natural tendency to scoop back into it. When you really do feel like those kind of gospel-y, those kind of things, the fast stuff, you be fully down or up depending which direction you're going. But when it's a bit slower, it just gives you more leeway to play in and around which direction you're coming from. You know, that kind of that Derek-y kind of, if we're calling it a Derek-y
quarter
thing.
Tony, that quarter Tony, slightly out, but yeah. Could it also be, and I'm just thinking out loud here a bit, that the course correction, or let's say pitch correction, always seems to sound better if you go up to a note rather than down. And I'm thinking it with singing as well. If you sing sharp and go flat, it sounds a lot worse than if you start slightly flat and go up to a note.
I think just even in general, listening to someone sing, you could hear I think most of us don't notice, a lot of people naturally sing a bit flat. It's just like a natural tendency. It's not as natural to sing sharp. It's typically when you're pushing harder, like if you're trying to give it that more steam or that breath and you're trying to hit a certain note and you're overcompensating. So I think it's a mixture of just like natural tendencies. Flat is kind of falls more in like the natural template of human music output.
No, it's just, I mean, you have a very vocal style when you play slide guitar, so I think drawing on analogies with the voice seems to make sense, because you're kind of emulating your voice through the instrument a little bit.
Sure. But at the same time, like every slide guitar player usually says, I'm trying to sound like a singer. I'm trying to sound like Aretha Franklin. But at the same time, I'm truly, and this is a great tip, for people starting slide. I'm just embellishing what I would normally play. Like, sure, maybe with my finger style playing out. That's not a lick, like... You know what I mean? You would play it more vertical.
Yeah.
Like, these are licks I would, to a degree, play. So a lot of my vocabulary on the slide was built off of, hey, what's a line that you already do? Well, why don't you... kind of taking something you're already doing and embellishing it with the slide. So, like, I find a lot of people are discouraged because they're just like... and they do that, or they're just... and they're like, now what? What do I do? I got this slide on it, and I'm here to say, do all the things you know, within reason. That if you already have some lines and some licks and some motifs, try to work it in. And, like, again, the more horizontal is the trick. That's where the magic is.
You're in standard tuning right now, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that helps you and other guitar players be able to use the vocabulary they know because the finger patterns stay the same, as opposed to, I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but the Elmore Jamesy kind of slide guitar player, the traditional older guys, earlier eras, tend to have a handful of licks that they use all the time. And I feel like that's linked with the tuning. So Elmore Jamesy in open E's got that, and that's in almost every Elmore James song has that lick. Sure. You know, because it's tied to the tuning. Whereas you in standard tuning, you're not forced into any particular type of lick.
But you will be forced into, like, your limitations and what you know. And if you find your things that are your go-tos in standard, you're going to lean on those too. Yeah. The open tuning thing, you know, there's historical lineage within a lot of open tuning slide licks, which is important. But slide, the essence of playing slide and the technique is the same in open tuning or standard tuning. It's just a matter of knowledge where the notes you're playing. Yeah, it's nice to play a major chord like that. But there's a time and a place for it. What I'm trying to say, and I think what you were alluding to, is that if you're going to start playing slide and like taking what you've already known and adding something new to it, don't make it harder by switching to open tuning or a different tuning it. Stay in a tuning where you know where the notes are. I played slide in standard tuning for a very long time. And then when I got into open tuning, I started in open E because it was the closest thing to standard tuning. And it's been a long time. It's been almost 20 years of playing in open tuning. And I still don't think I'm like fully it's, you know, but I don't need to be. I like open tuning feeling like almost like a different instrument. And I play slide a little different in open than I play in standard tuning. But the technique, I don't play different. My choices are a little different, but the technique and the approach is all the same.
Is it an even split for you, or mostly standard and a little bit open tuning?
It's a pretty even split. I'd say it's like a 60-40 or a 65, no, 55, 45. I don't know.
Yeah, that'll do. and when you do your solo things, are they typically just a mixture of different tunings? Like when you've done your solo records where you'd improvised solo sets.
Yeah. The Myelin stuff. Yeah, that's like a baritone guitar, which is standard tuning intervals. An open tune guitar. That's it. Switch between those two. I don't play in any other tunings. I was having this discussion with a friend yesterday, and I transpose pretty easily because I've spent a lot of time working on my transposition. But I think of open E or open D or open D flat or open C as the same tuning. It's just and
the interval relationships are the same, right?
The interval relationships are the same. So E standard, E flat, D standard, D flat standard also feels the same. Therefore, I think of them only as just two tunings rather than multiple tunings. I think of Dadgad as a different tuning, or open G like Keith Richards style.
Yeah. So you don't play in open G or open A. You're only in E intervals or whatever. E or
exactly.
D or D. Yeah. I understand. So we got a couple of questions here from the gang. So let me slam these your way. Is a slide best on electric guitar? From Paul.
I don't think I'm to say it's best on electric guitar. I think it's traditionally used predominantly on electric guitars. It's also used predominantly on resonator guitars and dobro guitars with a cone inside. That's part of just historical upbringing of the sound, and it's identified with that kind of sound. There are people that play slide on acoustic guitars. I have never loved the sound of it personally. That's just my own personal taste preference. I would say resonators, dobros, electric guitars is where you would most commonly hear slide guitars. So is it best? I don't know, but it's most commonly used on those.
Yeah, I think that's right. Resonators or electric mostly. Okay, Toby says, is that slide closed on the end? It's yes. Never seen that one like that before. Does Ariel have more info? I used glass, light brass, or Italian beer bottle that came with my JD cigar box.
It's my signature slide. It's by a company called the Rock Slide. There it is.
There it
was.
There it goes.
So it's a ball tip end, and your finger kind of fits into this groove here.
Oh, it's got a slopey bit on the end. So
yeah. So it's crazy that it's been 10 years already. Time flies, but yeah, the Rock Slide is the company. If you're interested, they're pretty available almost everywhere. I always have a bunch with me when I tour, do shows or anything, so you can always grab one there. But is it going to be the right slide for everybody? No, because some of us have different sized fingers and hands, but collectively...
they don't come in different sizes?
If you're going to go with my model, it's one size, but the company does medium, large.
Okay.
So you can get the size you need. I'm not here to say it needs to be mine. But like I said at the beginning of this stream, try a bunch if you can. Find the one. Maybe it's not brass. And this is something we didn't talk about quickly. I'll just allude to this. The type of slide. I know you talked about weight, but there is a different sound between brass, nickel, glass, and like ceramic. I'd say ceramic and glass are a bit warmer sounding. Brass, a bit brighter. Personal preference as well, but to keep that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, now there was another question there, and it's just disappeared. So fan must have assumed that that we answered the question miraculously anyway. So okay, that's all good. I think we've covered most of the basics of slide guitar. If somebody wants to get into it, so now I want to be a bit selfish and talk a little bit more about the playing behind the slide. And did you get into playing behind the slide as a way of using again your normal vocabulary with the slide thing? Is that how it started? And is it something that you purposely developed again, or is it just I'm going to try doing this, and then you find a new thing that you can do?
First of all, I didn't develop behind the slide playing. There's guys like that's not what you meant, but yeah.
Your development of it or whatever.
I think
is it Sonny Landreth? Is that the kind of where that stuff started? He's
one of them, the originators, I would think. And there's a guy named Kevin Bright, who's one of my favorite slide players, probably my favorite. He plays on his ring, and he would do things like, I'm playing kind of like me though. It's not, but I heard him do these things first, and I was like, wow, what an interesting sound. And I think I just developed it my own way.
So what was that? What was that last thing? That was really cool. It was almost, it sounded like
that.
Ah.
Was it that?
Yeah.
It was just taking like, you know, like an add 9 or a
Yeah, yeah.
sus2 chord, and it's just like that pedal steel kind of.
It's exactly what I was hearing it as sounding.
You know? These are all pedal steel kind of licks. So some of those licks are actually easier and open because they're closer together. They're just one fret.
Yeah.
I think it was a mixture of me just, you know... and I... Obviously, that's more vertical playing. So it's like not super necessary, but it was natural to go, wait a minute, I could... Yeah. It's like it was. I realized like there's like this not untapped, but it's like this kind of pedal steel element you can get where it's an illusion. It sounds like the slide is playing these notes.
Yeah, it
But
does.
it's not really. It's really just playing those notes, and I'm playing this high note with my finger. But when you're coming down on it, and the technique is, you have to be diagonal, so it's. Yeah, it's fun. It unlocks. It's a very rich chordal sound. You know, like chord changes, chords with like sus4, sus2, and add 9. There's so much beautiful information in these chords. So to use them to lift onto a major third with the slide, you know? Sounds great without a slide, but just a different vibe.
Yeah. I do love the illusion that it's being played by the slide. That's really interesting that it really does sound like that. And even on pedal, I bought a pedal steel last year. It's like my little
side project.
On the rare occasion I have any free time, I like to make horrible cat sounds with it. And I think what's interesting is you not all the time, but you can put the pedals down quite quickly, and the jump between the note doesn't always go smoothly to it, and it does sound exactly like that. You know.
Yeah, and
like
with single note
jump.
lines. You know, I'm really just playing the first note with the slide. But because it's resonating under it, it gives this sound. That. Anyways, you know, it's fun.
I love it. I should point out to the good people out there that want to try this. Last time I met Ariel, I spent quite a while trying to figure out some of this behind the slide stuff, and it felt important for me to have a higher action to do that. Like most of my regular non-slide guitars, it just always fretted out. Like you'd play the notes, play behind it, and it was too close, and it would rattle on the slide. So I think that you do need that slightly
just like
higher
you said
action
at the
to
beginning,
make that work. Yeah,
it's going to make it so much easier out the gate. Your action doesn't have to be like 5 meters high. Just like little differences make a huge difference with that the action with slide.
Yeah,
you know?
It only has to just not touch the slide, right? When you fret behind, it doesn't matter if it misses the slide by 0.5 millimeter or 2 millimeters. As long as it misses it, we're all right.
That reminds me of one more thing I didn't say. When you're sliding, one thing to practice. Some people like to press with the slide.
Oh.
I'm more of a glider. and it helps with like the more singy sound, I think. But all the attack, if you're like aggressively playing, it's coming from here. Well, my left hand is really just kind of coasting. It's got like the convertible top down, just kind of going at a steady speed in like the non-fast lane, doing it. And that is a big part of the sound. Not digging in too much. There's a time where I think I'll probably dig in sometimes, but 9 out of 10 times it's just...
Oh, what's happened? Something has frozen. I don't know if it's me or if it's Ariel. Okay, there's Fan. Is Ariel frozen?
Yes,
Or am
he's
I?
frozen.
He's
He's frozen. It's not you.
I mean,
Yes.
it's a good pose.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to chat until Ariel reappears.
We
Hopefully soon.
yes, we have some Blim questions actually. If you want to
Oh, okay,
take a look at them, I'll put them as the banner. So I'll just put them on the screen.
okay, great.
We have one from Lori, and it's course specific. So here.
Okay, cool. The course says
Encouraged.
most of the licks. Oh, here he is. He's back. No, he's not. He was back and then he's not. Okay, I'm going to go for Laurie's question until he comes back again on a more permanent level. Let's see what happens there. The course has most of the licks starting on the 1. I'm assuming you mean beat 1. Studying the Masters, it seems they almost never start a lick on the 1. Can you address this? So it's a really great question. When I'm teaching the phrases, though, I feel like it's easier for people to digest the language with a word at the beginning of the sentence. I don't know if that's the right way to do it. I would be surprised if most people always put the lick on the 1 all the time when they're improvising, but it's an easier place to start when you're learning a new phrase rather than trying to... If I was teaching a lick and it started on the and of 4 and I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, Emma, 1, 2, 3, 4, and do. I feel like it might just get a little bit more complicated. So the way that I tried to structure the licks over the course of Blim was trying to find the most used and effective vocabulary in each pattern based around the minor pentatonic framework. Then I would play around and see if I could put all of those into a kind of a 12-bar form so that it would be playable as the medley, and then I'd teach it. And generally speaking, again, trying to keep it simple, they all just fit on those, neatly into the little bars. If they fit like that, easier to play, easier to address. But 100%, the words don't have to always, the licks don't always have to start on 1. That is just the way I've ended up teaching it. And I would hope that you will find, if you improvise with the licks, as I suggest, where you take 1 lick and you try and use the 1 lick lots of different ways, one of the lots of different ways that you would experiment with it would be starting it on different notes in the bar. Hopefully that helps. It's a great question, and probably one that I should address somewhere actually as part of the course and explain that people should do that. Oh, he's back.
Hey, I'm back. I'm so sorry. I think my internet had enough slide for a second. Said I'm out.
No more. Okay,
Yeah.
We got a question from On Time. Ariel is smoking on that Strat. Dude is a ripper. What are the pickups?
These are Curtis Novak gold foils.
Wow. I'm not familiar with those.
So gold foils are traditionally found in old Japanese guitars like Harmonies and Tiescos.
Okay.
Xenon, stuff like that. And Ry Cooder famously would take these pickups out of the guitar, because the guitars were worth $50 or less.
Yeah.
They're cheap pawn shop
catalog guitars, right?
Catalog guitars.
Yeah.
But the pickups are amazing. So he'd take these pickups out, put them in Strats, thus becoming what we know as a Cooder caster. And you know what? These have they have a cool sound where this is just for fun. They're not like my favorite style of pick. I don't even think I have a favorite pickup because they're all so different. But they're single coil. It's a bit more muscle than like your average Strat single coil pickup, but it's not as beefy as, say, a P90, which is also single coil. So it lives somewhere in between there. It just has a cool sound. And
Does
they're
have a
fun.
cool sound.
And they're fun
Absolutely.
looking.
Yeah.
But more importantly, they sound cool.
Yeah. That you are making it sound cool, my friend. I'm sure the guitar is cool. I wouldn't make it sound the same way. Okay. Are there any more questions for Ariel? We're nearly going to sign off. If you've got a question for the man, let me know. Something else to mention as well. Ariel tours a lot. He's fantastic live. Does loads and loads of improv. If you haven't checked out his albums as well, Mile End, it's called, right? Mile End 1, Mile End 2, 3
Yes.
as well.
There's
or
3
4?
of them.
3.
No, there's only 3, and
There's
it's
3.
done now. Yeah.
Improvised albums, which I just can't fathom that he can do that, but he can, and they're great. My favorite of his albums is an older one called How Long. I think it's an absolutely killer record. I still listen to it all the time.
Thanks, man.
So that's maybe a more songy one than a guitar-y one. Still amazing guitar player, great tone.
The songy albums are like really my main thing, which have a lot of guitar on them, but
yeah.
The improvised thing was a fun little side project that turned into something that I think a lot of people enjoyed. So I kept challenging myself to do it, and it was a fun, like different avenue of musical expression, which I enjoyed. So it was fun. Yeah.
Oh, dude, it's all love it. Okay, there's some questions coming. One from Jamie. Saw Ariel in Kingston, Ontario last month. He blew me away. Why do I get a noise when I place the slide on the strings?
I think I need you to be a bit more specific.
Yeah. Why do I get a noise?
Typically, you're going to get an...
Maybe,
like that?
That's what I think he means, yeah.
I mean, that just happens. That's why you need to make sure you're muting. Right?
It would happen if you just put your fingers down on the strings behind a fret hard enough, right? No, if you like fretted with your fingers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Sounds like the Hard Day's Night chord or something.
Maybe that's it. That's the mystery of that chord. Yeah. Are you planning any concerts in Denmark? From Jesper.
I am.
Oh, yeah.
They're already planned, but
they're planned.
I can't announce them yet.
But
I promise you we're coming. Yeah, we're coming back. We love Denmark. Always have a very soft spot in my heart for Denmark, and we will be back very, very soon. Announcement to come sooner than later.
To get on your mailing list, they're going to arielposen.com.
They're going to arielposen.com. At the bottom, we'll have the mailing list. Or if you follow me on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, you can find the link tree, which is in my bio, and that takes you to the mailing list.
There you go.
Transcriptions, the store, tour dates, all the things that you can find them easily there. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. That's great. Oh, there's one more question that I missed. Hang on. What's that
Let's
one
do it.
over there on the start? I'm just checking that I'm not about to read out like some Simpsons name here, because I'm like, oh, is that going to sound funny? Fakwob says, is there any particular settings on the amp that you recommend, reverb and sustain?
Well, the sustain primarily is going to come from the guitar. So a lot of people, who are fans of Lowell George, who's famously known for using 2 1176 compressors for his sound. And compression, as much of a tool as it is, it's also an effect. It's like a sound. I find, yes, you can get a lot of compression from an amp by really turning it up, depending on the wattage. But the original source of sustain will come from your action being high enough where you're not fretting out. So start there and then move on to the next. That's how I always approach things. Like, okay, what's the source? Okay, the instrument. What's the source before that? Your hands. So what are your hands doing on the instrument to then, okay, the hands can't fully do their job if the guitar isn't set up the right way it needs to be. So you do that. And then you have that going. Okay, then let's work the amp in. Do we want a cleaner thing or a dirtier thing? That's personal preference. The sustain is going to be equal if the guitar setup is correct and gives you a higher enough action, therefore giving you that sustain with the slide.
Are you using a compressor as part of your regular signal chain?
I hate compressors, personally.
I was thinking that you probably didn't because you seem to have a really wide dynamic range. And for
Yeah.
me, when I hear a compressed sound, it's making all of the bits that would have been subtle and delicate too loud for themselves. But
That's
you don't seem to
that's what it
have that.
does.
Yeah.
And that's just not my thing. So like for those that don't know, compression, if this is our signal, you play really loud.
And he's frozen. So you play really loud or you play really soft. A compressor will make the quiet sounds louder and the loud sounds softer, so that the volume of all of the things that you play is about the same. So the effect of that is a narrowing of the dynamic range. By dynamic range, I mean the difference between the quietest you can play and the loudest you can play. And there are definitely times when compressors are cool with kind of funky things. A lot of funk guitar players use a lot of heavy compression. And
Sorry.
lol, George, that's it, dude. You're all good. But I just did the compression thing. What it
Okay,
was. But
you explained it.
Yeah.
So I was just going to say
I had to go.
what you just explained, I'm assuming,
Yeah.
is the opposite of what I like. I want to control the highs, the lows.
Mm-hmm.
But like Justin, I bet you would agree. Like you said, compression, it's like an effect. There's like the squash, like that really compressed funk, or specifically like country kind of sound, like a compressor with a telly. That's like, it's an effect. Like you would use a tremolo pedal or a fuzz or a wah pedal. Like compression to me is like an effect rather than a tool. It's both, of course, but
Yeah. I kind of feel like I use it sometimes in the studio as like parallel compression, where my main sound has the dynamic range, but I'll feed off a send into a compressor and squash it up just to make the whole thing a little fatter. And that doesn't seem to spoil the range as much.
For a recording, let's say you're making
Yeah.
a record, Justin, you got drums, you got keys, drums, I already said drums, bass, vocals, everything's getting compressed like crazy. No matter what, no matter if you want it or not, things need to be compressed to sit in a mix. So at the end of the day, you could say all you like, I don't like compression, but it has to get compressed. However, playing live or in a studio, at first, like what I'm saying is my direct, like unprocessed sound, I prefer to not use any compression.
Yeah.
Just so that
And
dynamic
live you
range-
don't either then.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what? My front of house guy, Manny, he's for sure compressing my guitar in the front of house.
Yeah.
But he's also riding when I'm playing quiet or loud. So at the end of the day, the lesson is everything's getting compressed, but the source of what you control, I just don't like to do it. I don't like to have it compressed.
Nice. Okay. Fans just said there's one more submitted question from Blim. Fam, do you want to put that on the screen and I'll run that quickly? Question from Ray. When playing licks, are you aware of the chord tones that you are using, or do you just play by ear instinct?
Yeah.
So personally, and Ariel, this would be interesting to get your take on it as well. For me, I have vocabulary that I think about that becomes part of my musical imagination, so that when I'm playing over a particular chord, I don't want to think about it when I'm actually playing. When I'm practicing, I might be thinking about trying to use a lick or a technique or something, but when I'm really playing, I don't want to think at all. So the process of practicing for me is about trying to make those licks part of my vocabulary in a way that they might just spontaneously happen. And so when I'm practicing licks, I'm kind of training my musical imagination to have these new sounds. And not all of them will stick, but some of them will. And in that way, if I'm learning licks that use chord tones, when that chord is playing, hopefully those appropriate licks will come out at the right time. When I'm actually playing, for real, I don't think about chord tones or really what I'm playing at all. I'm hoping that the practice that I've done beforehand will inform that moment. I guess that's how I think of it. Ariel?
Exactly the same.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I think I practice and I've spent a lot of time focusing on what chord tones have impact. If you're landing on a chord and you want to highlight that chord. Like if I'm playing a blues by myself right now, right? And I'm just soloing. I know the third will. Thirds, right? Thirds are your best friend, but I believe in targeting chord tones and thinking like that. But in the moment, I'm trying to be numb and present and intentional outside of the theoretical. But like you said, all the time and all the practice, you hope it just seeps into your subconscious, which eventually it does. And then you just freeform. Your freeform ideas become that of your practice.
Yeah. I think that's got to be the way to do it. Like the idea of thinking of like a particular lick and I would just stink if I actually specifically tried to.
Yeah, but it's a great way to practice it.
No, you have to.
You have to.
Yeah. I think I don't know. Martin Taylor, you know, the jazz dude, says that he never practiced, he never learned licks, he never did anything like that ever. And I'm like, oh, how the hell do you, like, he can sit down and play all of this Django stuff, like, bang on. He's like, well, I just listened to it a lot, you know? So he's done it somehow. I don't know, I don't get it. I would have had to have done the finger work as well, but he seems to have done enough, I don't know, scales and arpeggios and stuff to be able to, his hand knows where the sounds are, that when he's listened to it and absorbed the sounds into his musical imagination, he can make them happen. But I don't think that's the norm.
He's learned the vocabulary. I mean, we've all done that. Listen, like, think of the music you know the most intimately and the stuff that you've put the most time into listening to. If you tried to play like the stuff you've listened to, you instinctually know what to do. Even if you don't know where to find it, you know what it should be. It's just a matter of learning it because you've listened to it so many times. Jazz is obviously complex, but at the same time, it's very scalier and there is vocabulary and a lot of repetition to it. So I would believe that you know, in time he would just learn the vocabulary and just through practice and time, which is the biggest secret and cheat code is time. It's not a cheat code, is you have to just put the time in. You develop how to use these ideas and how to make them conversational and musical, most importantly, rather than they probably started like it was just copy and pasting for a long time, a lot of repetition, and then the expansion happens when you get comfortable with it.
Yeah. I've just noticed we're 10 past over, so I don't want to keep you much longer, but a topic for next time I think would be really interesting is training your musical imagination to hear more complex things. Because I just super quickly, I recently was thinking about some Miles Davis solos from Kind of Blue, which is a record I know really well. And things like the solo for So What or Blue and Green or whatever, I know them. And I know them in my musical imagination. And a lot of it I can play just because I know what it sounds like. But there are definitely moments where there's some funky chromatic stuff going on. And even though I think I know it, I can't sing it. Therefore, I don't actually know it. It's interesting for me that there's these other levels of complexity that I haven't fully absorbed by just listening.
The ear will always trick you as well. And even if you spend a lot of time doing ear training, which I recommend everybody to do, that unless you have perfect pitch, I guess, like your ears will always deceive you. Because like the combination of weird chromaticisms blended into really familiar intervals can what's going on here?
It's odd, isn't it?
It's like listening to someone with like a really heavy accent that you can't understand. It's like I know the words you're saying.
Yeah.
I know the words that you're saying, but like the way it's jarring. So the processing in my head is taking longer to. Is that what you said, or you know?
Interesting analogy. That's one for a glass of wine another time, my friend. So look, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm sure
pleasure.
The Blues Immersion crowd really enjoyed it as well. Hopefully get you back again later in the year for the next class for that as well. Do go check out Ariel's site. Sign up for the newsletter so you can see him live because it's killer. If you haven't gone and checked out all of his records, go find them on Apple Music or Spotify or whatever it is you stream on. Thanks again, my friend. Stick around. I'll end the stream. We can chat for a second. Have yourselves a fantastic weekend ahead, and I'll see you again very soon. Ciao.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Yeah, my friend, I just can't.